This is the Spurscast with your host, Paul Garcia.
Welcome back to another episode of the Spurscast. On today's episode, I will be speaking with Project Spurs Director of Digital Content, Joe Garcia. In this episode, Joe and I will discuss the Spurs in their last 6 games, rookies Malaki Branham and Jeremy Sochan, and veteran Stanley Johnson. Let's jump right into this episode with Joe. Joe, how you doing?
Doing good, man. It's good to be talking San Antonio Spurs basketball with you after the Christmas break. We still got to get through New Year's, but nonetheless, it is great to talk basketball with you once again. And let's dive in here and talk about not only Stanley, but the emergence of one, Jeremy Sochan. He's been looking really good as of late.
Yeah, for sure. And so it has been about 2 weeks since I last recorded Spurscast. We took some time off for the holidays. We are back now. So since I last spoke with Josh Paredes from Air Alamo, who we're now partnering with, you can listen to Spurscast episodes over on Air Alamo. We had talked, and they had just finished playing the Portland Trailblazers. So let's go through the last 6 games for the team, Joe. So they went 2-4 in their last 6 games. Let's go back to a long time ago, about 2 weeks ago. They were playing it in Mexico City against the Miami Heat. They lose this game by 10 to Spurs. It was a close game throughout, but then Miami pulled away there in the fourth quarter. Then they come back. They come back in the United States, and they go to Houston, and they play the Houston Rockets on the road, and they win this game, San Antonio, by 19. It was a close game as well, but then late in the third quarter, San Antonio took a big lead against Houston, and they ended up winning that game comfortably. Then they stay on the road, and they go to New Orleans, and they lose this game by 9 points. The Pelicans opened up a big lead against the Spurs midway through the fourth, and then they held on to the lead throughout. And then on the second night of a back-to-back, the Spurs are still on the road. They're on the road at Orlando. They lose this game by 20. It was actually close throughout, but then again, that fourth quarter comes and the Magic take control. It was also the second night of a back-to-back for the Spurs. Then they get a few days off for Christmas, and then they return on a Monday at home against the Utah Jazz, and they defeat the Jazz by 4 points, San Antonio. It was a close game throughout. San Antonio took control midway through the third, and then Utah kind of made it come down to the wire. And then the last game, the most recent one, was on Tuesday evening, and you and I are recording this on a Wednesday, where the Spurs lost by 16 at Oklahoma City. It was, again, another close game, kind of same story. The Thunder ended up taking control in the fourth, and so San Antonio ends up losing this game. All right, so Joe, overall, the Spurs were supposed to go 0-6 according to Vegas in these last 6 games, but they actually, they went 2-4, which is better than when they were in that losing streak. So, what do you think? What are your impressions of this team lately in these last 6 games?
Well, I mean, honestly, they've been playing a little bit better as a team. It looks like they're starting to build some cohesion here, some chemistry, which is a good thing. However, their biggest Achilles heel is still garnishing that fourth quarter. If they have the lead, they give up the lead, or if they start to get close to tying the game, they just after that they get it close to about maybe 2 points, 1 point, and then they just fall apart. And again, they're just having issues trying to close out games, and it's been very telling too, because they can't put Jakob Poeltl in the games in the fourth quarter. They're putting Zach Collins in there because Jakob is a liability when it comes to free throw shooting. So unless Zach Collins gets in to foul trouble, then they're forced to go ahead and play Jakob, and you can't have that happen. You need your big man, your best big man out there on the court in these crunch time situations. So again, that's just something Jakob's going to have to work through. But you see all these little things start compiling, and basically what happens is it's just the team just can't figure out how to close out these games. And it's a shame, because I think they could win a lot more than they're losing, but that's indicative of just a young team, and you're seeing them grow a little bit, but they're still losing some close games, and I'm not mad at that, Paul. I'm going to be honest with you, because at the end of the day, I want to get Victor Wembanyama or Scoot Henderson. I want a top pick on this team to go ahead and help them win even more games and possibly even break into the playoffs. But it's kind of just frustrating, I think, with Spurs fans at the moment. The saving graces of watching Jeremy Sochan or like Stanley Johnson, but man, this team is just is not consistent when it comes to the fourth quarter. That's the biggest takeaway that I've had.
Yeah, like when you look back at their last 2 games, they have been playing better. They're 5-5 in their last 10. And something that you and I talked about, Joe, the last time you were on the Spurscast, remember they were just dealing with so many injuries. And we just said, one of the biggest things for this team to improve is just to get players back, their key players. And so they have started to get a little bit more healthy. Fewer players are out these days. And so we have seen that, yes, they're still losing games. Like you said, it goes back to their youth, their inexperience. We also want to note that Poeltl, aside from, as well as what you said about him being struggling on the free throw line, he also is on a minutes restriction that they really want to ease him back very slowly. And so they have Pop has had to follow that minutes restriction from the medical staff. All right, so where are the Spurs now through 34 games of the season? They're 28th on offense, so got a little bit better there. Still 30th on defense, still 30th the net rating, 11-23 overall, which is 14th out west. And then they do have the 4th worst record in the league. So because they've been actually playing a little bit better, their lottery odds have decreased. So they have, if the lottery was today, they would have a 13% chance, 12.5% chance of getting the overall pick, which isn't, not being one of those bottom 3. Did you have any thoughts there, Joe, about their overall where they stand?
No, I mean, Spurs fans should have already predicted this was going to happen, with the rebuilding phase that the team's currently in. The only thing that you can look forward to is, from here on out, is just seeing the growth, like we keep saying, of the individual players themselves. And, one of the things that I commend Jeremy Sohan on is playing a little bit more consistent when it comes to his offense. We've seen that, that emergence of his offensive game come on as of late. And, even Stanley Johnson, playing limited minutes here, he's looking really good. He's and you see what's happening too, because Isaiah Roby and Charles Bassey aren't really getting those minutes anymore. They're playing like 2 minutes, 33 seconds. I think is what they played in the last game and the loss to OKC. But it's a good thing. I think Pop is starting to figure out what works for this team moving forward, even though he did get tossed because some of those foul calls were questionable. I'm going to be honest with you, Paul, but I think it was just a tactic on Coach Pop's part. But overall, just looking at the individual growth of these young players is the one thing that I'm really paying close attention to. And you're seeing that little spurt of growth happen right before, we start getting towards the end of the year here. We only got I think there's 1 or 2 more games left before the Spurs close out the season. And then they're going to start looking towards the rodeo road trip. And of course the All-Star break in. We're going to be looking to see if any moves are made. So a lot of things are going to be happening here shortly.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you mean like the calendar year, right? 2022, because 1 or 2 more games there. So, all right. So now, Joe, let's talk about some players that you actually mentioned, some players who are playing very well for this team. And again, that's what you do in a season when it's kind of a rebuilding season. You want to focus on the players that are like, the younger players who are making some growth here. And so the first player I want to talk about is rookie Malaki Branham. So now he's played 20 whole games this season. Let's first talk about his offense. He's averaging 18 minutes a night, 7 points on 6 shot attempts, 2 assists, 1 turnover, and these stats are rounded. But in these last 6 games, he's really started to pop and really started to get his shot going and also making some really good decisions. So in his last 6 games, he's averaging 21 minutes, 12 points on 7 shot attempts, 2 assists, and 2 turnovers. We have seen him lately. Pop's been throwing him there as a one, like as a backup point guard, basically. So he is coded as a combo guard according to Cleaning the Glass, where 61% of his minutes are at the 2, but 38% of his minutes are at the 1, and he has been, like I said, the backup point guard. One thing that I really noticed, because Devin Vassell is usually the only player who's a 3-level scorer, Malaki starting to show that as well, that he can be a 3-level scorer, score from mid-range, so in the paint, and also from the 3-point line. And so one thing I noticed as I dug into some of his data, according to Cleaning the Glass, is that 25% of his rim makes are assisted, which means that's a very low number, which puts him in the 85th percentile among combo guards. So again, that's just showing there that stat that he's not having to rely on players to create for him when he does go and attack the rim. He's actually doing it himself. So that's some self-creation. And then also 24% of his mid-range makes are also assisted, which is a low number, which means that he's also able to kind of pump fake from the 3-point line and then get that little mid-range shot going. And so again, those are skills that also Devin Vassell has on the Spurs team, but a lot of the other players don't have. Also, when we look at his shooting, his 3-point shot has started to come around now. I know that from the above the break 3, he's still struggling from there overall, but he has been shooting 55% in these last 6 games from 3. You see his corner threes are doing really well for him. His mid-range is not too far off from a point per shot. He's efficient when he attacks the paint. Wide open 3, he's efficient there. And then also, for being a rookie, he's actually throwing in some pull-up threes. That's a good stat, the fact that he's only a rookie there. And then I would say the impact is on Josh Richardson, where I think it's going to be more likely that he's going to get traded, because we have already seen a game where everybody was fully healthy and Josh Richardson got a DNP in that game. I think it's because Malachi's been playing really well off the bench. And then also we're going to talk about later, Stanley Johnson's been playing as well. So I think that the chances of Josh Richardson getting traded have just increased with Branham's impact here. And then lastly on defense, not too many numbers stick out here. So 2 rebounds a game, 1 foul per game for Branham, and then 5.8 contested shots per 36 minutes, which does stick out amongst the Spurs wings and guards. What are your thoughts, Joe, on Malaki Branham and how he's been playing lately?
Oh, he's been surprising. The rookie showed some promise in the summer league, and then you look at some of the games I guess he's played over with the Austin G League. The young player, the young man, he's been showing a lot of promise. And now you're seeing him get some quality minutes here, averaging, like you stated, what, about 21 minutes a game now. He's been able to contribute, which is a great thing, especially for a 19-year-old rookie. That's amazing that he's able to do this. He's not very scared out there on the court like you would normally see of a 19-year-old rookie out there, kind of the deer in the headlights look. He kind of is more controlled. He looks calm out there. He looks relaxed, and he is playing within the context of the actual Spurs system itself, again, which is a testament to him because he's 19 years old, and it usually takes even seasoned players a couple of seasons to get used to this Spurs system. So credit to the rookie. I mean, it's showing that he has a high basketball IQ, and he's making the most of the minutes that he's given. And as you stated, he's a versatile player because he's listed as a small forward, and they can also play him as an SG, a shooting guard at times as well. So he's a very versatile player. And again, you're pointing out his mid-range game, and I think that's one of the things that is really helping this Spurs team as of late to kind of be able to stay in games, because they're not very good three-point shooting team. Yeah. But if they can just go ahead and just knock down points when needed, and they just go ahead and stick to that mid-range game, and they can have players out there that can knock down a pull-up jumper, there you go. Any points in the heat of the battle, especially in the third and fourth quarter, is going to help this team get better. And again, you can also rely on the rookie if he's wide open from beyond the arc to knock down a three-pointer. It doesn't take a lot of them, but when he's given the opportunity to make them, he's knocking them down. I'm just looking at the last couple of games going back to the Heat, and with the Heat, he was 3 of 4 from beyond the arc. Then I'm looking at the game that he had against the Rockets, 2 of 4. Pelicans, 1 of 3. Magic, he was 1 for 1. Jazz, 2 of 4. And against the Thunder, the most recent game, he was 1 of 2. All in all, it's not that bad from beyond the arc. He's not taking a lot, but the shots that he does take, again, like I said, he's knocking him down. So very solid performance from a 19-year-old rookie. It's been impressive.
Yeah, and two things I want to say there is, like, number one is like what you said. He looks very poised, very composed out there for being a rookie. I mean, he just looks like he fits in. He doesn't like rush things. He doesn't get too overwhelmed with the situations that he's put in. So that's one thing I wanted to know. And then number two is that I just felt like when you looked at his jump shot, even from early in the year in like summer league, you just knew he was a natural shooter. Like, he just has a really good flow to his shot. It wasn't something that needs to be corrected or worked on. And so I just knew that. I know in the beginning of the season, he was really struggling from three. I was like, man, that's going to start falling. He's just a good shooter. He just looks like a good shooter. And so you start to see it now. Like, I mean, like you said, he's shooting over 55% in these last 6 games from three. His shot just looks so smooth. He's actually one of the players now, aside from like Devin Vassell, maybe like Doug McDermott. There's like 3 players who I think that the threes are always going to go in for the Spurs. And it's those 3 players, Devin, Doug, and now Malaki. And just as you were talking, I was looking at the data here. Look at that. 81% of his shots are attempted wide open, his threes. And so defenses don't know who he is yet. They're just leaving him wide open. They don't know who he is as a player. And he's making them pay right now, the fact that he's making, he's getting over a point per shot. So yeah, Malachi's been off to a really good run here. And now let's talk about another Spurs rookie. And this is Jeremy Sochan. We talked about him multiple times throughout the year on the Spurscast, because he's one of the players who's been getting a lot of minutes. He's one of the starting players. But what I really noticed lately for him, especially the last 5 games, is he's been really aggressive attacking the basket. And I almost feel like the coaching staff gave him the green light just to say, hey, go get more shot attempts, kind of just go out there, see what more you can do. And we know that he doesn't take threes. So let's talk about what he's doing on offense. 25 minutes a night overall for the season, 9 points on 8 shots, 3 assists and 2 turnovers. His last 5 games though, 28 minutes, so about 3 minutes increase, 14 points per game on 12 shots. So like I said, he is taking 4 more shots per game, 4 assists, 2 turnovers. According to Cleaning the Glass, he has a 17% usage amongst forwards, which is above league average, 66th percentile. 13.1% assist percentage, 78% amongst forwards. 6.5% offensive rebound percentage. That's one way that he gets a lot of his points, is he's able to get those putbacks, and we saw that recently against OKC. And then the one big thing is that he's we know that he's struggling from the free throw line, so he's actually he's confident in the fact that the coaching staff asked him to start taking one-handed free throws, and he's making them. I mean, he's doing it they're on television in front of everybody, and it's an unnatural shot for a lot of us because we haven't seen that happen in the NBA in such a long time. But hey, it worked for him. In one game, he went 7 to 10 from the free throw line. So that's one thing I noticed, is that he's just been very aggressive on defense. Still really good defender. 5 rebounds a night, 3 fouls, 1 steal, 1 block. When you round those stats, in his last 5 games, he's actually averaging 8 rebounds. 1.1 block percentage, according to Cleaning the Glass, 73rd percentile amongst forwards, and then 2.7 deflections per game per 36 minutes, should I say? And that ranks really high amongst the Spurs bigs there on the team. And then as far as his shot location, I would just say, again, just an efficient player when he attacks the paint and around the rim. He's good there. And we've already talked about his 3-point shot. We know that's something he's working on. What are your thoughts there, Joe, on Jeremy Sochan being more aggressive on the offensive end?
No, that's the thing, Spurs fans. And I remember specifically somebody that's on the radio right now went ahead and said that Jeremy Sochan was going to be a bust, and I was like, that was a horrible take, because this is a rookie, a 19-year-old rookie that we really don't know what he's going to be able to do in the context of an NBA season. 19 years old, a higher pick in the draft, for the San Antonio Spurs. And he looked great, when he was out there early on in the season, as far as his defensive prowess. Spurs fans took notice of that, started making comparisons towards one Dennis Rodman, and it's because of the color of the hair and the kind of the way that they play defense out there on the court. He's great, moving out there on the court with his, staying with his defender and all that, defending out there inside the paint, and in the context of even coming back and getting back on transition defense, moves well without the ball, great in the open court. We've even seen him have some spectacular dunks in the open court. We saw a pass that he had that Jakob Poeltl caught him in stride, and Jakob Poeltl was spot on with that pass, passed it right towards his face, and Jeremy Sochan caught it and immediately just didn't lose any stride at all, and dunked the ball. And it was amazing to see that he has such great hands, for a rookie, looking very comfortable out there. And you're seeing the advent of him being more comfortable correlate more with his offensive game coming, into full circle now. And he wasn't putting up a lot of points, 2 points, 4 points. Spurs fans were really on him about and not scoring, because he was such a high pick in the draft. But now you're seeing him be very comfortable, be more aggressive inside the paint. I think he's really starting to find his footing here with the Spurs, and just staying inside that paint, that mid-range jumper, moving well without the ball, backdoor cuts. Even in the open court, as we've seen him a couple of times, have those spectacular dunks, have a steal, and immediately just run up the court and just be able to dunk it. I mean, he's showing a lot of his athleticism out on full display. And I think Spurs fans are getting excited for the possibility of what he can actually transform himself into. I think he's got all the solid pieces. He's not going to be a really prolific 3-point shooter, but the other things that he brings to the table are going to be a solid defender and someone who can score a mid-range jumper inside the paint, and can also go ahead and get some tip-ins, and mix it up with everybody. I mean, he's 6'9", and he's got a ton of athleticism. So I'm liking everything I'm seeing out of Jeremy Sochan right now. I think he is going to be one of these instrumental pieces to the Spurs moving forward, and Spurs fans should get excited about Jeremy Sochan and what he can bring to the team.
Yeah, no, for sure. I agree with you there. And just one thing I wanted to note is the fact that, like, I'm interested to see what his jump shot looks like a few years, like 2 or 3 years from now. Just the fact that what he's doing, I mean, this is like really unprecedented, where he's like rebuilding his shot now in the middle of the season. Normally guys wait till the season ends and then they go in the gym and they work with their coaches, blah, blah, blah. Now the fact that we see this dude taking one-handed free throws just to start getting that first foundation piece of his shooting hand going first, and then he'll start adding the guide hand. And so that's what's really interesting to me is, what does his jump shot look like a few years from now as he's continued to work on? We know that's one of his areas where he struggles. And just the fact that, he's not embarrassed. He's going to go out there and shoot one-handed free throws if he needs to, and he's going to try to get, start working on that foundation piece now instead of waiting till till May when the season ends. So yeah, I think that he's had a really good run here, especially like I said, just these last 5 games. The fact that I really feel like there's been some conversation there. This is where I do miss being in San Antonio, covering the games live, because I could be asking those questions. The players, the coaches, what has happened here in these last 5 games. The fact I feel like he got the green light to start being more aggressive, and we see that there when he had like a 20+ point night recently in one of these games for his career high.
Yeah, it was against the Pelicans. He scored 23 points, and that's when Spurs fans got really excited about, I guess, the coming out party of one Jeremy Sochan.
Yes, for sure. So yeah, so that's what I'm interested to see as well. All right, so now, Joe, the last player I want to talk about just a little bit here is Stanley Johnson, because when I last recorded with Josh, he really hadn't played any games with the Spurs. And the reason why I want to go back to him is because initially Josh and I thought he was going to be like, he's going to be like Alize Johnson or Jordan Hall, players who really didn't get a lot of run unless it was like garbage time or somebody was hurt. But no, Pop has been very, very impressed by Stanley Johnson, and so he's actually been a key part in these last 7 games. He's been getting real minutes, rotation minutes. And I haven't read here. It's a small sample size warning because we know, again, it's only 7 games, so the data is going to look really good for him. But again, just the fact that Pop's really trusting him and he really likes what he's doing out there, the fact that he's giving him rotation minutes. So let's talk about what he's doing right now. 13 minutes a night for Stanley Johnson, 6 points on 4 shot attempts, 2 assists, 1 turnover. He is, like I mentioned, getting rotation minutes. I think that we have seen him getting minutes has also had an impact again for Josh Richardson, where he's not getting many minutes. And so that makes him probably more likely to get traded. And then also even Romeo Langford, when he's been healthy, he hasn't been getting a lot of run either, because now Stanley Johnson's taking those minutes there at the backup 3. And then on defense is where he really stands out. 2 rebounds, 1 foul, 1 steal, 1 block, 1 rounded. Steals per 36 minutes, which ranks really high amongst his teammates at the wing position. 1.6 blocks per 36 minutes, and then 5.3 defensive rebounds. And I did want to warn again that it is a small sample size warning. But again, despite that small sample size warning, Pop likes what he's seeing. What are your thoughts, Joe, on Stanley Johnson getting some real minutes early on?
Oh, I've been liking what I'm seeing out of one Stanley Johnson as well. And I've just seen what everybody else has been, clamoring about and posting up on social media, as far as Spurs Twitter goes. And a lot of the fans have been impressed with Stanley Johnson. He's looking like, before the Spurs fans were a little upset because they lost Elise Johnson. And they're like, well, losing Elise Johnson's going to go ahead and pave the way now for Stanley Johnson. And I think they've been happy with that move overall, even though they might have felt a certain way about it in the beginning. But, he's just a veteran player. And basically what happened in 2015 is that Spurs fans had wanted him early on in the draft, and look what happened. Now the Spurs were patient. They waited, and, it just worked out where they went ahead and got him. He was a 2015 first-round pick. I think he was picked 8th overall. So he was a pretty high pick in that 2015 draft. And basically they're getting him for dirt cheap. I think his salary is like $2.4 million or something like that, Paul. So
yeah, if he even stays on the team, no, it's actually less than $1 million. No, yeah, I think you're right, but yeah, I don't have the numbers, but I know that it's not guaranteed yet. So
it's not guaranteed yet, but I mean, either way, it's like that's dirt cheap considering you don't really want to overpay for veterans, and they got a solid piece and Stanley Johnson. I mean, he's been getting some good run out there. Coach Pop is really believing in him, and over the course of the last 2 games against the Jazz on Christmas, the day after Christmas, he had 14 minutes, and against the latest game against OKC, and the Spurs lost to OKC, he had 14 minutes. I mean, his point production isn't really going to be way up there, but he's making the most of the minutes that he has out there on the court. He scored 3 points against the Jazz, 6 points against the Thunder. Field goal shooting, he was 3 of 6 in yesterday's outing against the Jazz. I mean, against the Thunder, OKC, and then against the Jazz, he was 1 of 2. So not really shooting a lot from beyond the arc. He's like 1 or 2 3-point attempts, makes, should I say, a game, and he's taking about maybe 3 shots from beyond the arc on any given game. But he's busy out there on the defensive end. He's getting steals, and he's also sharing the ball quite well out there, doing some garbage minutes, I guess, getting rebounds and stuff. So he's a really solid addition, a really solid piece, and you can't say enough good things about him. He's just going to go out there and do his job, and he's doing his job well. And, so much so that Coach Pop is giving him more and more minutes as a reward. So, hey, can't say enough good things about Stanley Johnson.
And yes, like so what you mentioned there. So I actually had it because it was bothering me whenever I don't know the contract numbers in my head. So I went back and looked just real quick, and he is only getting $1.2 million this season if he even stays on the team for the whole season, like you said. I mean, that's just like 1% of their cap is all he's taking. Yeah, exactly. So the fact that he's been a productive player on that, and I just know that over the years, covering the Spurs, I know that they've always been linked to him. The Spurs might trade for Stanley Johnson, the Spurs might sign Stanley Johnson. There's always been those rumors. So obviously the front office has known who he is as a player, and they've really wanted him for a long time. And then one thing Pop said, I don't know which reporter tweeted this out recently, is that, or maybe even I got the quotes from the Spurs. Anyway, he had said that the fact that Stanley's just a really physical defender, and he sets that tone for the team, and that's the reason why he wants him out there a lot, is the fact that the guys see him check into the game, and he's getting physical with other players, and he's staying with them and really just getting into them. And so Pop says that he sets the tone for the team, and that's what they needed as far as like a veteran presence there, especially on the defensive end, and that's one area that Pop really likes a lot. So Joe, real quick, Joe. So do you agree that the way Stanley's playing and the way Malachi's playing, it's probably more evident that Josh Richardson will probably get moved before the trade deadline or by the trade deadline?
Yeah, unfortunately, he's going to be a casualty of, just these the younger players, as far as Malaki Branham really showing some promise. And then, of course, Stanley Johnson, it's really just came in and just been, one of these, great role players, should I say.
Mhm.
So, unfortunately for Josh Richardson, it's looking like, he's probably going to wind up getting shopped around. And you're going to start hearing more and more about that as they get closer and closer to the trade deadline, which is going to be right around a couple days or so after the All-Star break, I believe.
Yeah, it's either after or before the All-Star break. It's right there in
Yeah.
early February, like 10th
Yeah.
or 13th, something like that. I don't have the top of my
So
head.
the rumor mill is going to start picking up, and I think you're going to hear the same thing as we keep saying with Doug McDermott, and probably Jakob Portal's name will
Yep.
be thrown out there as well. And if that does happen, well, Spurs fans, the tank for Wemby is probably going to be in full effect there. So, I mean, it's not a bad thing. It's part of the game. But again, Stanley Johnson, I mean, he's just been a solid addition. And again, the Spurs getting him for the price that they're getting him for this coming season. So I mean, you get a solid role player, and you can go ahead and look at him when his contract comes up, and see if you can go ahead and get him at a bargain bin price again and add him to the team, and that way you can go ahead and save that cap money and go after either some free agents, or maybe go ahead and save that and start retaining some of the players that you currently have here on the roster. So either way, it's a good move for the Spurs, and again, solid addition with Stanley Johnson.
For sure. Totally agree there. All right. So thank you to Joe for joining me on this episode of the Spurscast. I also want to thank Joe for mixing and producing this episode. From all of us at Project Spurs, stay safe. Have a great day.